That's the game for TheNut.
TheNut93, the 7th ranked trainer in the world.
No,
GG's.
TheNut93.
The Nut, playing that out in a chess match, the Nut had the win
do.
there.
One shot, now the future is yours. Go! Yeah, I was building on a lecture. Verses coming daily under pressure.
Starting off in round 1 against TheNut93, we have Skarmory versus Skarmory in a mirror match. And what is crucial in the mirror match is that you're able to hit excellence on those sky attacks. And because it's not very effective damage, every damage is going to count. So both players decide to farm up a bit of energy. They're going for maybe double sky attack in a row or a shield bait. So TheNut93 goes off for the first sky attack and is able to actually get the second off. But it wasn't able to piggyback. As you can see, the Nut was able to get that air slash in between. It's going for its own sky attack now. And it's deciding to swap in into Metachamp. Although it is a positive matchup for Skarmory, but because he is on half health, our Metachamp is in a good position to put a bit of pressure on our opponent. So our opponent doesn't actually swap out. I do agree with this play here because there are no hard counters for Metachamp in Boulder Cup, and so that sky attack was crucial because it forces the TheNut93 to use a shield. Now he brings in his own Metachamp, and the TheNut93 is powered up twice, so if he's able to land an Ice Punch here, it could be a game changer. So he does go for the Ice Punch. Does TheNut93 fall for it? He does, and he even uses his power up punch. So he's powered up twice now, but he's on neutral energy. So Skarmory's able to come in and farm 2 more air slash. Wow, and he's got a full flash cannon ready to go. It's not looking good for our opponent here. Of course, Swampert comes in and sky attack gets off, and opponents decides to shield. So because it's farmed up so much energy, it's able to get the second sky attack before Swampert is able to actually go for its hydro cannon. So now though TheNut93 decides to allow the Skarmory to come in and just, you know, finish it off, and now this is going to be a shield bait, or no, it is a shield bait, and it lands with the hydro cannon, and it's going to be very tough for the TheNut93 because this Swampert is able to gonna go for this earthquake here. So very interesting to see the TheNut93 running Muddy Water opposed to Earthquake. But yeah, very lucky. Wow, that was amazing. So the TheNut93 was able to get that last hydro cannon with just a smidgen of health. GG. So in round 2 we have Skarmory against Skarmory again. Again, it's very, very common for Boulder Cup to see the same kind of line and same kind of leading match, because Metachamp switch in is one of the safest switch with 2 shields. There is nothing that really hard counters because there's no ghost. So here the TheNut93 decides to go for the flash cannon, and now it's ahead in damage. So though TheNut93 decides to go for the sky attack here, and it's not very effective damage, and the TheNut93 is able to get another sky attack off. Is he deciding to shield here? No, because he knows he doesn't have charge move priority, so he had to switch up his moveset. It makes a lot of sense. So now this Skarmory is in the perfect range for Metachamp to just farm it up. So it was actually a really good move on the TheNut93 side, recognizing that he doesn't have charge move priority. He has to play that matchup slightly differently. So now this Metachamp in the mirror match is ahead in energy, and we're gonna see a power up punch here. So is he going for the ice punch? He does. I don't think our opponent's gonna shield here because this power up punch only went off once, so that ice punch is not gonna hit for a whole lot. Now it's triple power up punch, and then he decides to swap in his Razor Leafer here. So this is gonna hit very hard if he doesn't shield. So the TheNut93 decides to shield And now, though Technical has got 2 shields, but it's going to be Swampert in the back, I am guessing. And it is. And it's going to be GG here. So, very well predicted there. I'm able to recognize that the opponent is liking a Swampert. And it's GG for the TheNut93. Coming up, we have round 2 in Kingdom Cup against Alyssa Noble. And first round, this is Altaria against Bassadin. So Altaria is going to get walled. It's going to encourage a straight swap into Lucario. Ooh, our opponent is switching a little bit slow there. So Lucario is able to get off this power-up punch and is forced to shield. Comes out with Altaria. And this Lucario is going to get to the Shadow Ball. Is our opponent going to shield? Very likely not, because it's going to force him to be on no shields. So now this Altaria is able to get off Sky Attack. It's going to force a shield on the TheNut93. The TheNut93 is able to finish that off. And now it's got a power up punch ready to go. So here we go against Lucario. This is definitely going to force a shield. Otherwise it's pretty much GG. But it is an uphill battle. Wow. And Lucario comes back from the dead. Interesting bug there. So Altaria comes out facing the Lucario, and Bassadin comes out and GG because it's double fighting. This Blaziken's going to be able to counter it down. It's going to shield himself from the Stone Edge, and it's got the Blaze Kick to greet the Lucario coming out. So this is pretty much GG round 1. Switching out of a slower fast move is never easy, so for newer players watching, definitely practice that in your PvP matches. You might want to just hold half a second before you press the switch button, otherwise you get stuck. So starting round 2, we have Altaria against Marowak. This is in favor of the TheNut93. He was seeing if his opponent would switch out of Marowak. Now he switches into Altaria, and the TheNut93 contemplated there, but he decides not to get his fighters in here. So if he lands the Sky Attack, it's going to be great for the TheNut93. So he does land the Sky Attack, and Lucario comes out. It's going to try and get a power-up punch, I guess, or farm it down potentially. So the TheNut93 opts to go for farming down, and unfortunately this Altaria gets off one more Sky Attack and is forced to double shield. Now the Marowak is likely to come back out, so it's going to be a deciding factor whether or not he shield baits. So here we go, we have the power up punch. I'm pretty sure this Marowak is close to its charge move, and it does get off this charge move. It is a Shadow Ball, wow, and it finishes off Lucario. Altaria comes back out, Lapras comes in, Blaziken is a blind switch because he doesn't need the Blaziken against the Marowak, so it makes sense. It's gonna take the Surf and it's finished off. Oh my gosh, so this is gonna be really tough. If Lapras can get off an Ice Beam, it's gonna be over. So, wow, he does get off a charge move. It seems like it's gonna be a Surf. It is a Surf, and it doesn't finish off the Altaria. Now it's gonna be very close because Heck doesn't do a whole lot of damage. And the TheNut93 finishes off with a Sky Attack on a smidgen of health. That is an amazing match. GG round 2. This is game 1 Rainbow Cup against Ricky 1990. So looking at the lead, we got Raichu leading into Fortress. This is a favorable matchup for Raichu, but he would have to expend some shields here. So he goes for the shield bait here with the Thunder Punch. Will our opponent shield? He doesn't. Doesn't fall for the bait. And Fortress decides to not waste any time and go for the Heavy Slam straight away. It's not very effective damage, and he decides to swap into Quagsire. So clearly there was a very good switch there, able to tank that Thunder Punch, but unfortunately the TheNut93 has the counter switch into Venusaur, and unfortunately he was able to get that Frenzy Plant off before the Quagsire could get off anything. So slightly too greedy on the energy farming there, but Fortress comes back out, and it is a hard counter for Venusaur, but it's not going to go down without a fight because it's able to get probably one more Frenzy Plant. Actually, Fortress is actually able to get that heavy slam off quite quickly. And TheNut93 decides to shield here, now forcing the opponent to either shield or be finished off. So Lapras comes out, a little bit of lag. I'm not too sure if the lag actually caused TheNut93 to get this Frenzy Plant, but it is in the TheNut93 favor here. So Lapras would probably come out to tank the Surf because this Lapras is obviously farmed up. And here does our opponent go for the Skull Bash? If he shields, it would be devastating. No. So it is a Skull Bash, and if our opponent was counting, he would realize this is a Surf. He does realize it's a Surf, so he doesn't go for the shield here. It could be Ricky's game here. So let's see how this works out. Skull Bash does hit and Lapras goes down. There's no shield bait there. And unfortunately Raichu is not on enough health, and so that's GG round 1. So going to round 2, what kind of adjustments are we going to make? The TheNut93 leads with Venusaur. It's going to force a quick switch from our opponent, and Lapras comes out. Lapras is not exactly a positive matchup against Venusaur, especially switching in, but it does not go down without a fight. So we got a shield come up on Venusaur, and it was a Surf. Wow, good bait there. And this Frenzy Plant is either going to force the second shield or take out the Lapras. And Lapras is able to get this last Surf off, and it's now finished off. So I would imagine Lapras comes back out, and with no shields, I think the TheNut93 is going to be able to finish it off with just the Skull Bash. And here, does our opponent decide to shield bait? No, he doesn't. He goes for the Skull Bash straight away. And the TheNut93 decides to overcharge a little bit here, which is great. Overcharging means that you know your opponent just expanded their energy, and so you can go for a couple more fast moves to store up more energy. And the Surf is going to do neutral damage against Quagsire, and Lapras is quite tanky. It's going to be able to tank at least one Stone Edge here and get off one more Surf. So with shields down, I think it's going to be pretty tough for our opponent here. He does swap into Fortress, very good time swap, again tanking that Surf and saving the Quagsire. But unfortunately the TheNut93 has a Charizard hard counter, and it's going to take down this Fortress really quickly, and it's going to be able to load up this Blast Burn to finish off the game, because Quagsire does not have any energy right at this moment. And so that's GG round 2. Coming into game 3, so we've seen the TheNut93 lead Raichu, and then Venusaur, now back to Raichu, and we're looking at our first matchup again against Fortress. So does he go for the shield bait this time? He doesn't. He goes for the Wild Charge. Opponent's shield, so he was able to predict that it was a Wild Charge there, and goes for the Heavy Slam straight away, and I would imagine a swap like last time. And so out comes Quagsire. Raichu shielded the Heavy Slam, conserving its HP for next Pokemon that comes out. Venusaur comes out as a counter switch, and Quagsire is able to get off Earthquake this time. So very crucial whether or not our opponent decides to shield, because if he doesn't, it's now TheNut93 having the switch advantage. So opponent comes out with the Lapras to finish off the Venusaur, farms up a bit of energy here, slight energy advantage, and the TheNut93 comes out straight away with the Wild Charge. It is within Surf range. He doesn't shield, but it's so tanky, he's able to tank that super effective Wild Charge and get off the Surf. Forces the TheNut93 to shield, and unfortunately he's spamming that Thunder Punch. Very good switch by our opponent here, and out comes Lapras to tank whatever comes from Fortress. Unfortunately this is a Heavy Slam Fortress, and it's not going to have any super effective damage against the Lapras. Lapras is just able to tank almost everything. We saw it tank a Wild Charge, now it's tanking an Earthquake. is going to be able to finish off this Fortress with this last surf, and because opponent's Lapras is on low health, it's pretty much GG. But very solid switches from Ricky Zen, very good games to watch. Coming into the second match against player no name, we lead with Raichu against Venusaur. So a bad matchup for the TheNut93. He decides to switch after a couple of Thunder Shocks there into Lapras, and opponents decides to straight switch, even though that Frenzy Plant was going to do a super effective damage. So the TheNut93 decides to go for the Skull Bash, and our opponent predicted it and shields. So now it's going to go for the Acid Spray. Looks like the Nut is going for its second Skull Bash, and our opponent is not likely going to want to expand 2 shields on the Lapras. Here comes another Acid Spray, and here is the Skull Bash. So let's see if our opponent shields here. It was going to do a ton of neutral damage, but it doesn't finish the Tentacle off, and because Lapras is Acid Spray twice, it's able to finish off that Lapras. And as a dying breath, it's able to get off this Acid Spray on this Raichu. Raichu is already being squishy enough itself, and out comes the Venusaur. So even the Vine Whip are doing a ton of damage there. So he goes for the Wild Charge, and it doesn't do very effective damage, and Venusaur is down to sort of 1/4 of health. Fortress comes out to counter switch into the Venusaur, and he's able to get off another Frenzy Plant. And so is our opponent going to use a Heavy Slam here, or is he saving all his energy for the Raichu? I think he should be using his energy here, because the Nuts still have 2 shields. It's going to be very tough for him if he doesn't. So here he does go for his Rock Tomb, so it's a little bit late, because the Nut realized that if he can go for that one more Frenzy Plant, it's going to force the opponent to come out with the Venusaur. And now it's Venusaur against Raichu. It's going to be an uphill battle, because this Venusaur has tons of energy. It's able to get off a second Frenzy Plant, and it's going to be GG round 1. So very well played there. Coming into second game, let's see how the Nut adjusts. He loves this Raichu lead, and he goes for the Raichu lead again, and he guessed right against the Tentacle. He's going to be able to do a ton of damage, super effective damage with the Wild Charge. Is this going to land? And our opponent decides to shield there, so it's going to be able to get off this Acid Spray or Hydro Pump. Wow, very good prediction on the Nut's end, shielding that Sludge Wave. And now Venusaur comes out, mirror match, and No Name has a slight energy advantage. It goes for the Sludge Bomb, lands it. The Nut returns a Sludge Bomb to its opponent, and will it land? Our opponent decides to shield, so very good mind reading here by both ends, and Venusaur is forced to shield if it wants to do a bit more damage with that Sludge Bomb. So here we go, and the Nut goes for the Sludge Bomb. It lands. Unfortunately, opponent has a bit more energy here. It's going to be able to get off this Frenzy Plant to finish the Nut's Venusaur off. And out comes Lapras, farms 1 Ice Shard, and against Tentacruel, it's not going to do a whole lot of damage, so the Nut decides to switch into Raichu and finish it off with 1 Wild Charge. And out comes the Quagsire. Quagsire is not going to take very effective damage here, but is still going to do a decent chunk, and takes off 1/3. Is it able to get off 1 more Thunder Punch? It does! Wow. So this Quagsire is going to be at a half, just less than half health here. So out comes Lapras with the Surf. Is it going to be able to finish it off? So Quagsire does go for its charge move, and it's going to be Stone Edge. It doesn't finish it off. Lapras is able to finish it off, and it's GG round 2. So coming into round 3, you can see a Charizard lead. The TheNut93 is thinking that its opponent is going to play something that's going to counter Raichu such as Venusaur, but opponent knows better, comes out with Poliwrath, which is somewhat a positive matchup. The power-up punch is not going to do very effective damage. Obviously with Charizard's flying type, it's able to get off this Dragon Claw. It's going to force our opponent to shield here or let go of the Poliwrath. So Poliwrath does decide to shield to get one more Hydro Pump off. That is insane. That Mud Shot just charges super quick. It's able to go for one more power-up punch. I don't think it's going to be able to finish this Charizard. I think our opponent was better off to just try and spam 4 power-up punch there, but yeah, he was hoping that Hydro Pump would land, and the Nut knew better. That was a big charge move coming. And so out comes Venusaur. It's looking really tough for our opponent here. If he's coming in as a second Pokemon with Venusaur, what he has in the back is probably weak against Charizard as well. So it looks like it's an uphill battle as he finish off the Charizard with a Frenzy Plant, and out comes the Forretress. Is going to be able to finish it off with just fast move. So it was a Forretress in the back. It's double bug, double grass, super weak against fire, and Forretress is able to get off that Earthquake. The Nut at this point still has one shield. It's going to be pretty much GG here. It gets off a Rock Tomb, but it's meaningless as the Nut finishes off this Venusaur. We're now in the Rainbow Cup final. As you can see, we got Venusaur, Charizard and Lapras as the safe switch. Starting off, we have a bad lead against Forretress. It's gonna force an immediate switch potentially, and we've switched into Lapras. So opponent decides to come out with Quagsire. Not exactly a hard counter, but definitely will force a shield with that super effective Stone Edge. So Lapras is able to get off a second Surf here, and our opponent is forced to shield, otherwise it's not going to be able to get that Stone Edge off. So TheNut93 decides to shield this. He knows that there is no hard counter for this Lapras. It makes a lot of sense to conserve the health of this Lapras, and it's able to get off the second Surf, and it's going to be able to knock it out unless our opponent shields there. So he doesn't shield, and our opponent is going to be coming back out with the Forretress. So despite losing the lead, that Lapras allowed the TheNut93 to gain switch advantage back, and now it's able to come back out with Venusaur. It's one shield against one shield, so it's really up to Lapras whether or not they'll be able to land a big move, potentially a Skull Bash here, or could it be an Ice Beam. So the TheNut93 decides to shield this, and it is a Surf. He does land a shield bait, but he's able to get off one more Frenzy Plant here. It's going to be able to take this Lapras out, and Forretress comes back out. It's going to be able to farm a bit of energy here. It's definitely full, and unfortunately this Blast Burn is going to finish it off, and that's GG round 1. So very well played despite losing the lead. Lapras gaining switch advantage by shielding against that Quagsire. So second game, we have Venusaur running into Forretress again. It's going to force the TheNut93 to switch out. So out comes Lapras, and it's already got a couple of Ice Shards against this Lantern. It has a chance to regain switch advantage if it lands the Skull Bash. So let's see if Lantern decides to shield here, and he does not. So now, in order for the TheNut93 to regain switch advantage, he would have to expend 2 shields, and he does shield a first Thunderbolt, and it makes a lot of sense. So he's going to go for the Surf here, and it's going to force our opponent to think whether or not to shield, and he does shield. So now this second Thunderbolt comes out. The TheNut93 decides to shield. He's wanting to regain switch advantage, and he's farming up a little bit more energy there to go for the second Surf. So if our opponent does not shield here, so great. So now he regains switch advantage. He's able to get off the Surf. It's going to deal a decent amount of damage against Forretress, dealing neutral damage. And while he does get one more Surf, and he's going to try to go for the Skull Bash. Wow, this Lapras is doing a lot of work. So out comes Venusaur. Makes a lot of sense, and this Venusaur is actually on too much health, and hopefully the Fortress is not going to farm too much energy. Interesting, so our opponent decides to shield that Frenzy Plant and then finish it off with Skull Bash. Play that I didn't see coming. So out comes Raichu, and this Thunder Punch will be able to finish off this Lapras. So now out comes Fortress, and it's already got its charge move ready to go. It looks like it's going to be an Earthquake, and it's going to one-shot this Raichu. Now we have a low health Lapras, able to get off one more Surf. Is it enough? Is it enough to finish off this Fortress though? No, it doesn't. So very, very close match, and oh wow, and the Fortress is able to get the last charge move off to take game number 2. Some spectacular plays there, so GG round 2, and now we're going into the final round, and let's see how the TheNut93 decides to adjust here. Looking at that match 2, the crucial moment was having no shield on that Raichu, and it had to take that Earthquake from the Fortress, taking it out in one go. And Fortress had a bit of energy ready to go, and the Lapras being on quite low health, it was able to tank that Surf and still, take it out. So that was a crucial moment there. So let's see if the TheNut93 adjusts. He does decide to change up the Raichu into Charizard, which make a lot of sense because if our opponent goes for Fortress again, knowing that it is Heavy Slam and Earthquake, this Charizard is going to be free to reign against the Fortress. So let's see if Soku87 decides to adjust, change up his strategy, change up his flow, as Hero Vange would say, and let's see how we go. Coming into the final round, we have Venusaur lead again for a third time, and opponent decides to switch it up and uses Lantern. It's going to be forced to switch out to Lapras. So this time the TheNut93 decides to throw that Frenzy Plant, forcing a shield on this Lapras, which is a very great play here. But our opponent's Lapras has got a bit of an energy advantage here. It's going to be crucial whether or not he lands the Skull Bash. And it's a Surf, very well done on our opponent's end, able to bait the TheNut93 with that Surf. And so this again could be a crucial moment. It does get shielded, so our opponent, although he has expended one shield on the Venusaur, it's on slight advantage here because the TheNut93 doesn't really want to use both shields. So opponent decides to swap into Meganium, and the TheNut93 goes into Lapras. He could have saved that energy because this Meganium would have been completely walled. So our opponent did a really good switch there, forcing the TheNut93 to use all his energy. So Charizard's easily taking out the Meganium, it's no doubt. And out comes Lantern, makes a lot of sense. Obviously he's going to be able to tank majority of the hits, but Blast Burn still does a ton of damage even though it's not very effective. And this Water Gun is able to finish off this Charizard. So opponent decides to use that Thunderbolt. Was it a mistake? Could be, because he could have saved that charge move there, and he could have tanked that Dragon Claw. Let's see how this plays out. So Venusaur against Lapras, it's able to get this Frenzy Plant, and it's finishing off that Lapras. So out comes Lantern. Unfortunately, it doesn't have any energy, and this Venusaur is able to just finish it off with this Frenzy Plant. So that's GG round 3. Very good game, and it was very tight. It was some tough decisions there. Here's one of the games against player no name in Jungle Cup, and we just locked in a Magneton lead into knockdown, so perfect for the TheNut93. It's going to force an immediate switch from our opponent, I believe, into Venusaur, and Venusaur comes out. It's going to be greeted with this Magna Bomb. It's not going to do a whole lot of damage, but it does take it down significantly. So the TheNut93 could have just saved that energy and just farm up this Venusaur with the Vesper Queen, but he decides to just take it down and farm a bit of energy, and now it's ready for this Power Gem on this Noctowl, likely to induce a shield here. No, it doesn't. So Noctowl decides to just try and farm up this Vesper Queen. Vesper Queen is able to go for one more X-Scissor. It's not going to be very effective damage. So a couple more wing attacks here, and now it's probably close to 2 sky attacks, and I would say it's probably better for him to just go double sky attack here. He's probably going to go swap straight out into Vigoroth. Very good switch there, and the TheNut93 goes for the Magnet Bomb. It's going to force a shield. Now this Vigoroth has got tons of energy now. Could potentially come back here. So let's see how it works out. So goes for the double body slam, piggyback, so very well done there. Stops the TheNut93 from getting that one extra counter. So the TheNut93 goes for his own body slam, and it forces our opponent to use his second shield. And unfortunately the TheNut93 is already at its second body slam, so he was actually better off not to shield there. So Noctowl comes back out, and it's finished off with that Thunder Shock. So that's GG round 1. So very well played there. I mean, those switches were spot on, and here we got a positive lead once again. Vesper Queen into Venusaur, forces Vigoroth to come out, and it's still a positive matchup for the TheNut93, and he goes for the X-Scissor here. Player No Name probably has no hard counter for this Vesper Queen. Certainly he wouldn't want to get his Noctowl locked in, so sometimes it is better to sacrifice the Vigoroth in the Jungle Cup. So now this Vigoroth is doing its last body slam, and it's going to be finished off with Bug Bites. Out comes Magneton to greet the Vesper Queen. So it's going to be able to get off this X-Scissor. Not very effective damage, and Magneton induces a swap Venusaur against the TheNut93's Vigoroth. So the only way a Venusaur can actually beat a Vigoroth is a blind switch, because if Vigoroth gets 2 or 3 counters ahead, it can actually beat the Venusaur with 2 shield. So here the TheNut93 goes for the body slam, tries to finish off this Venusaur. This Venusaur is going to be able to go for one more Frenzy Plant, and it's shielded. So now this Vigoroth is going to be able to just farm down this Magneton. Now the only reason that Venusaur is not able to really out-tank this Vigoroth is because it was already hurt slightly. So now it's going to be very tough for our opponent here to come back as a low health Magneton against a full health one. Not very effective damage discharge there, and we are going to see it being finished off with this last discharge. So GG round 2. So coming into our last match here, Solku87, it's a regionals match, everyone's favorite. Starting off, we have Melmetal into Bronzong. So this matchup, it is really dependent on whether or not the Bulldoze can be landed and whether or not we can get a shield bait from the Bronzong. So gets off a Thunderbolt, it's shielded, and in comes Sableye, and counter switch into Azumarill by our opponent there. If the TheNut93 had Shadow Sneak here, he can actually take this matchup with 2 shields, but unfortunately because it is a Power Gem Sableye, it's gonna be Azumarill's match here. So here comes Ice Beam, I presume? Yep. And Sableye is going to be able to go for one more foul play here. Is it going to force a shield? Wow, it can actually go for double foul play, 1 power gem. That's, I did not know about that one. So that was new to me. But obviously, Sableye had 1 shield advantage there, and Azumarill just decided not to shield. So comes out with Skarmory, tries to farm it up, but sort of backfired because Skarmory had to take quite a bit of damage from that foul play. Out comes Bronzong against this Altaria, and it was perfectly timed switch to tank that Bulldoze, doing almost no damage. And Psyshock does a decent amount of neutral damage. This Altaria is going to do a Sky Attack, although not very effective, it's still going to do a decent chunk, so it's forcing the Bronzong to shield there. And Bronzong is able to go for 1 more Psyshock. The TheNut93 decides to let go of the Altaria, and in comes Melmetal to finish off the Bronzong before it can get off any more charge moves. So in comes Skarmory. It's going to be pretty tough as the Nut still have 1 shield, and that's GG round 1. So very interesting matchup there, although he had a losing lead coming in with Sableye and counter switch into Azumarill. It was very important for our opponent to actually keep the switch advantage there, and even though he was going to lose his shields, but it seemed like the only way that he could have won that. So coming into match 2, Venusaur lead into Medicham. This is an interesting matchup as well, as Medicham, if it gets an Ice Punch at some point, it's going to do a decent amount of damage, but not likely the first one. Now it's powered up. It's going to probably shield this Frenzy Plant from the Venusaur, and the TheNut93 actually decides to counter swap into Sableye. Again, we're greeted by the Azumarill. And now it's very similar to match number 1 because Azumarill is down 1 shield. So let's see if our opponent decides to shield this time. And the TheNut93 actually doesn't shield its Sableye and just goes for the Power Gem here. So now this Azumarill is quite farmed up. It's going to be greeted by the Venusaur, and this Ice Beam is definitely going to see some shields. The Nut, knowing that the Venusaur and the Altaria in the back is going to do super effective damage to both, he decides to save the shield. So very good play on the Nut's end, and out comes Skarmory straight into Altaria. The Nut does have 1 shield advantage. These Sky Attack's going to hit for not very effective damage. He hits all the bubbles there, and now this is probably going to force a shield as Altaria takes neutral damage from the Sky Attack. It's going to go for 1 more Sky Attack. The Skarmory is going to get off 1 more, but it's not going to be enough to take off the Altaria. So Altaria is taking this opportunity to farm as much energy as possible, as Skarmory takes 5 Air Slash to get to that Sky Attack. So now it's already close to the next Sky Attack. It forces this Medicham to use his energy straight away, and this is pretty much GG because this Frenzy Plant is gonna finish off this Medicham. GG in regionals.
That's the game for TheNut.
The TheNut93, the 7th ranked trainer in the world.
No,
GG's.
TheNut93.
The Nut playing that out in a chess match, the Nut had the win there.